Hi, I'm Porter Stansberry, and what I'm going to tell you about today is one of the biggest sure thing investments I've ever seen in my 25-year career. It revolves around a secret energy grid that's destined to power every home, every business, and every community in this country without releasing any pollutants. But you're not going to hear about this new energy grid from any mainstream media source because it runs counter to the mainstream narrative. It also poses a direct threat to the fossil fuel industry and their billionaire donors. That's why it is a great personal expense that I have produced this documentary. As an American, I believe you deserve to know why this secret energy grid exists, what it's capable of, and how you can benefit from it long before everyone else figures it out. Because for the first time ever, the technology that powers this secret grid is about to become scalable, meaning it could soon power every community in the country. And that will make early investors billions, if not trillions of dollars in new wealth. What you are looking at right now is a map of the United States. But it's not the kind of map you'll find in a classroom or a textbook. This map reveals America's secret energy grid. Spanning 28 states at an estimated cost of $500 billion, this grid has existed for decades, even though you don't know anything about it. Our best modern president, Ronald Reagan, made this energy grid the foundation of his energy policy 40 years ago. In fact, a lot of people I know refer to this grid as the greatest gift that Ronald Reagan ever gave to America. But I highly doubt you've ever even heard of it. Most people don't know it exists, and that's a shame. It's made up of 93 secret power facilities. Its existing core technology is actually all our country needs to move away from carbon-based power forever and have an extremely reliable and efficient power grid that will last us for centuries. That's great news for investors, but again, most people don't know this exists. Its potential hasn't been fully unlocked so far because of regulations and technological hurdles. However, that's about to change, and it's changing fast. In fact, because of a single decision made by America's power brokers on February 21st, 2023, the energy being produced by this secret grid is about to become scalable for the first time ever. That means this energy will soon penetrate into thousands of towns and cities all across the country. As you can see, each of these 93 facilities is guarded by, quote, well-trained security forces, physical barriers, intrusion detection systems, and surveillance systems. The reason for all this security is because the government never wanted you or anyone else to know the location of these facilities. But way back in May of 2009, all of that changed thanks to President Obama, and it happened entirely by mistake. During his first year in office, Obama accidentally leaked the location of all 93 facilities in a memo he sent to Congress. This list was exploited by WikiLeaks, whose founder now faces 175 years in prison for spying charges. At the time, the government didn't even notice the breach, not until it was alerted by the press. But by then it was too late. The document had already made its way online for the world to see. It has since been taken off that website. However, thanks to one of my contacts who I've known for close to 20 years, I've managed to obtain a copy of the document, all 267 pages. It's called the List of Sites, Locations, Facilities, and Activities Declared by the IAEA. And it's still marked highly confidential because it contains the details on all 93 of these secret facilities. So why would the government want to hide an energy grid that can power the entire country? Well, there are two reasons. Number one, because each facility in this grid can power 750,000 homes. The government was afraid that if a list of their individual locations was disclosed, they could become targets for terrorists. U.S. government officials have said it outright. If such a consolidated list of these facilities fell into the wrong hands of individuals who had malicious intentions, it could be potentially problematic. Number two, this grid poses a direct threat, not just to the $463 billion oil and gas industry and the $856 billion renewable energy industry, but also to the billionaires who who secretly profit from higher energy prices. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway owns 200 million shares of Occidental Petroleum and 167 million shares of Chevron. Those are oil companies. Billionaire David Tepper owns 10 million shares of Energy Transfer, which deals in natural gas. Billionaire Carl Icahn owns 5.8 million shares of Southwest Gas. Larry Fink's BlackRock fund owns 262 million shares of Exxon, which is 7% of the company. Billionaire Stevie Cohen owns 2.6 million shares of First Energy Corp. The list goes on and on. UBS, which is the third largest bank in Europe, reports that half of its billionaire clients are betting big on fossil fuel energy over the next 5 years. You'll never hear about any of this from the mainstream media because they don't want you to know about it. But the truth is simple. America is the new OPEC. We produce almost 20 million barrels of oil and other petroleum liquids per day. That's twice as much as Saudi Arabia. We also produce 100 billion cubic feet of natural gas per day, which is 20% more gas than we consume. That's why America has become a leading exporter of natural gas. And we produce about 1 billion tons of coal each year. Yeah, coal, people still use it. That's a 235-year supply beneath our feet. So the next time someone tells you that Putin is the reason why energy prices are so high, or that it has something to do with COVID-19 or corporate greed, or even meat conglomerates like Biden recently claimed, don't believe it for a single second. Americans, us, we're the ones who dictate energy prices around the world. Not Russia, not Iran, not Saudi Arabia. Energy is the lifeblood of the U.S. economy and every other economy. And everyone in the swamp, every member of Congress benefits from it. Billionaires, politicians, and lobbyists alike. So as much as the government likes to pretend that it wants to end fossil fuel production and start a green revolution, don't buy it. It's a bunch of bullshit. If our government wanted to end oil and gas production, they could have done it 50 years ago with this secret energy grid that already exists. But they didn't, because big oil is big business. And that's another reason why you've never heard of these 93 secret facilities. If people knew that the energy coming out of these facilities is cheaper to produce, is more effective than any other resource we have, and can power our entire country without producing any emissions, the oil and gas industry would take a huge hit. So would the $600 billion coal industry, and the $200 billion solar industry, and the $100 billion wind industry, and I could go on and on. But now that the cat's out of the bag, thanks to Obama's leaked memo, this secret power grid is no longer a secret. More importantly, because of a single decision made on February the 21st, 2023, the energy being produced by this grid is about to become scalable for the very first time, meaning this energy could soon penetrate thousands of towns and cities across America. If that happens, and I know it will, I believe we're going to see $1 trillion worth of new wealth created for our country. And I'm not the only one who sees the writing on this enormous new wall. Some of the same billionaires that own shares in the biggest oil and gas stocks are now piling their money into this secret energy grid, alongside the Department of Defense and an army of venture capitalists. In fact, between 2015 and 2021, investments in this secret energy grid grew from just $11 million a year to $1.1 billion. That's over 3,000% growth in just 6 years. And this is only the beginning of what I believe is going to be the ultimate cure to America's ongoing energy crisis. As I've said before, the one person who knew this before anyone else was Ronald Reagan. For those of you old enough to remember, Reagan was one of the most loved presidents in U.S. history, and I think one of our best. But there's something few people know about Reagan. Before he left office, he had a vision of the future of our country. And that vision is one of the primary reasons why this secret energy grid and those 93 facilities that power it exists today, and why I believe it's going to make investors a lot of money in the years to come. In an effort to cut down on federal spending, the first thing Reagan did when he entered office was cut funding for nearly every government program, including a $40 billion cut from social programs and a $2 billion cut from the military. But the one program Reagan did not slash the budget on was the one used to build these secret facilities. Reagan actually raised the budget for this program by $1.6 billion. Why? Reagan knew that if enough of these facilities were built, they would one day save America. And even though he was about 40 years too early in making that prediction, he was 100% right. Here, I want to show you something. This 18-mile stretch of land you're looking at right now is the largest intact coastal dune on Earth. The terrain makes it entirely uninhabitable. However, during his presidency, Reagan authorized the completion of an $11 billion energy facility right there in this remote coastal dune. Known today as Diablo Canyon, this facility is one of the 93 that make up this secret energy grid. And it has been powering the biggest economy in America for the last 40 years. It's an economy that includes 10% of America's millionaires, 25% of its billionaires, and is about to become the fourth largest economy in the world. Yeah, I'm talking about the state of California. Now, you may think California is just this isolated bubble of tech bros and yoga hipsters and celebrity wannabes who live on Botox and avocado toast, and you're not wrong. But whatever happens on Shutter Island has a lot of effect on the rest of us too. The reality is California is the most populated, most influential, and most powerful state in the nation. The trends that start in the Golden State eventually make their way into every state. And one of the big reasons why that is has to do with the fact that President Reagan, who lived and worked in California as an actor for 40 years, greenlit this secret facility on the Guadalupe-Nimpomo Dunes, 200 miles north of Los Angeles. This facility, which sits on roughly 1 square mile of land, powers 10% of the entire state of California. That works out to around 4 million people. This facility also produces 17% of California's clean energy. Let that sink in for a moment. This single facility, which was built 38 years ago under Reagan's authority, is currently providing California the fourth largest economy in the world, with 17% of its clean electricity. It's the state's best kept secret. On January 1st, 2023, nearly 1,000 new laws went into effect, courtesy of Governor Newsom. One law wipes away a criminal's arrest record after 4 years. Another decriminalizes jaywalking. But despite all of these idiotic ideas, there's one law that will have a massive impact on the future of our country. It's a law that ensures this secret facility will produce clean energy until the year 2030, and all but guarantees continued production of 18,000 gigawatt hours of clean electricity every year. Just to put that number into perspective, it would take over 3 million solar panels or 430 wind turbines to generate the same amount of power now coming out of Diablo Canyon. And of course, that assumes that the sun shines 24/7 and that the wind never stops blowing. That's why the Biden administration set aside $1.1 billion to ensure this facility continues operating, along with California lawmakers who set aside an additional $1.4 billion. The political elites know that Diablo Canyon and the energy it produces is the key to solving the energy crisis. It's Ronald Reagan's greatest gift to America. And as I mentioned before, there are actually 93 of these energy-producing facilities scattered across 28 states. Together, they produce more than half of our country's clean energy. You can forget the windmills. And in 2009, when their locations were leaked, the government was furious. Why? Because these facilities produce nuclear energy. That makes them prime targets for terror attacks, but it also makes them the most effective energy-producing facilities in America by a mile. For those of you who don't know, 1 kilogram of uranium has 3 million times more energy than oil, gas, and coal. To put that into perspective, 1 nuclear reactor can power 750,000 homes. By comparison, 1 solar farm with 2,000 panels can power 164 homes. 1 wind turbine can power 940 homes. That's why the Wall Street Journal says nuclear power is the best climate change solution we have by far, because it is. And now, thanks to a single decision that was made effective on February 21st, 2023, these 93 facilities and the nuclear energy they produce have become scalable. You see, on this day, a new technology was approved by the U.S. government, and this technology enables us to build hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear facilities all across the country at 1/50th the cost and in 1/5 the amount of time. To say this is a historical development would be a vast understatement. I want you to hear me. This is a generational achievement. This is something that's going to change everything about our country. According to former presidential advisor David Durham, this is a game-changing technology for energy. It's something that former White House Deputy Matt Bennett believes will save the world. So what is this new technology that was approved on February the 21st, 2023? And why do I believe it is going to potentially unleash $1 trillion of new wealth? Let me show you. Imagine for a moment that every hospital, every data center, every university campus, every military complex, every large corporation, and every small town in America was powered by a tiny nuclear reactor. A reactor so small that it could be assembled in a factory, transported inside a truck, and used to replace millions of diesel-powered generators. That may sound like science fiction or a pipe dream, but it's real. And the best part is, because these tiny reactors only use tiny amounts of radioactive material, they're completely safe too. You might think this technology is years away, or like I said, might sound like science fiction, but it's not. In fact, the blueprint for these tiny reactors has existed for decades. It's just been a secret. Today, though, its impending mass commercialization is a quantum leap forward in the energy field. It's something that I wasn't sure we'd ever see in my lifetime. And yet it's here right now, and it's going to change everything. Let me put this into context for you. When Henry Ford figured out how to build a car in 90 minutes instead of 90 days using an assembly line, it made automobiles scalable for the first time. For the first time, every American virtually could afford to have a car. When Amazon started building fulfillment centers across the country, it made it possible to buy goods online and receive those goods in days or even hours. When JDS Uniphase developed its pump lasers and revolutionized broadband networks, it made broadband connections essentially free. It powered an internet revolution that continues to change the world. We all know how much money early investors in these companies could have made. I know it firsthand. I first recommended Amazon.com to investors in 1997 and JDS Uniphase to investors in 1999. The technology I'm telling you about today, though, it's even more powerful than the technology that those companies developed. It's the first technology that will allow us to mass produce nuclear energy, which in my eyes makes it the most important breakthrough in all of human history. I know that's a bold statement, but I don't believe it's an exaggeration. What we're looking at right now is a highly secure U.S. facility that spans 1 million square feet. That's over 15 football fields under a single roof. It's surrounded by a mile of security fencing. There are 2,100 engineers, machinists, and technicians inside this facility right now as you're watching this presentation. And they're building a new type of nuclear reactor that the world has never seen before. It's a fraction of the size of a conventional reactor. It can restore power to any area hit by natural disaster. It can provide electricity to 10,000 homes for 10 years without ever stopping. It can power any mining operation or industrial power plant in the country. And it can be assembled in 72 hours. It can be used to power rural communities where 60 million Americans still live. It can fit inside a truck, a train, or an airplane. But what excites me the most is that this new nuclear technology has a guaranteed customer and the largest and most powerful institution in America, the U.S. military. It is a rare recipe for financial success that you only see once in a generation, if ever. That's why I'm here today making this presentation. I have found a way for you to get in on the ground floor of what Bloomberg calls a nuclear energy renaissance. But I believe it's much more than that. This is a nuclear energy revolution, and you can potentially profit from something that I believe is both inevitable and imminent. If you're watching this and you're having any doubts about what I'm saying, I can't fault you. For decades, you've likely been brainwashed into believing that nuclear energy is evil and that anyone who promotes it is an ignoramus. That's why every time you see this symbol, you cringe or you think about radioactive zombies. It's not your fault. The world has always been afraid of new forms of energy, and I mean always. In the late 1500s, when the rising cost of firewood forced Londoners to switch to coal, Elizabethan preachers railed against coal, saying it was the devil's excrement because it was black and dirty and found in deep underground holes. It was near hell, they claimed. Here we are 500 years later with the new religion, environmentalism, and their preachers saying that nuclear power represents the devil's bargain. You see, ignorance never dies. It just changes hands. But what I've learned after talking with a number of scientists, engineers, and geologists over the years is that condemnation of nuclear energy is badly misplaced. It's nothing but a series of lies that have been perpetuated by people who think anything but sunshine and wind will destroy the planet. And sadly, those lies have seeped into the minds of billions of people over the years, creating a mass delusion. Remember the 3 Mile Island incident in 1979? At the time, the media used fear to convince the public that radiation from the incident would give people who lived in the surrounding areas cancer. But according to official government documents, the leaked radiation from 3 Mile Island was so minimal that it was determined to have negligible health effects on the surrounding population. Even when the Fukushima reactors in Japan were destroyed by an earthquake and a tsunami in 2011, the UN's scientific committee said that there were no adverse health effects on the local population. Statistically, the number of deaths caused by the nuclear sector is lower than any other energy sector. Even Forbes says that the safest job in America is working inside a nuclear power plant. These statistics, the cold, hard data, and not the political propaganda, make it explicitly clear that nuclear energy is the safest and most effective form of energy on Earth, and that nothing will ever come close to replicating it. Look at this photo. It was taken back in 1963. It's of a nuclear power plant named after a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, Enrico Fermi. Fermi was one of the greatest geniuses of the last 100 years and is considered the father of nuclear energy. According to David Schwartz, Fermi was probably the last person who could view physics as an integrated whole. He had this comprehensive knowledge of virtually every area of physics. Obviously, the Enrico Fermi reactor was very different than a typical nuclear reactor. That's because it was the world's first small modular nuclear reactor, otherwise known as SMR. As the name implies, an SMR is a nuclear reactor that produces nuclear energy, but in a much smaller than typical reactor. That means it has all the advantages of a nuclear reactor, but almost none of the disadvantages. It can produce electricity without overheating. It can self-regulate. It can be paired with renewable resources. It can be built in 2 years as opposed to 10. And it can be deployed on top of shuttered coal plants, of which we have 300 in the United States today. And it can produce energy for 10 years without being refueled, whereas a typical reactor has to be refueled every 18 to 24 months. The only problem is, no one's been able to design a small modular reactor that meets the strict criteria of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of the U.S. government. Well, that is until now. Pictured here is the Voyager 12. And on February the 21st, 2023, it became the first ever SMR design to gain regulatory approval by the U.S. government. This means it has been cleared for use in the United States. Developed by a company called NuScale Power, the Voyager 12 can generate 924 megawatts of electricity on only 32 acres of land. To put this into context, you would need 10,000 acres of land to generate the same amount of power using solar panels, and 60,000 acres of land to generate the same amount of power using wind turbines. This is why SMRs are gaining the attention of governments around the world. It's why 80 SMR designs are being developed in 19 countries as you watch this presentation. 3 have already begun operating, and dozens will soon follow. When they do, the world will never be the same again. For the first time ever, we will be able to provide nuclear power to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And we'll be able to do it without having to spend billions of dollars on reactors that take decades to build. That's why I believe if you get in on the ground floor of this new technological breakthrough, you will look back at this presentation as a financial turning point in your life like no other. The moment you choose to capitalize on what may end up being the most important development of human history. But just so we're on the same page, I'm not telling you to run out and buy shares of NuScale Power. You'll likely hear a lot about that company over the next several months. It's the story of the century. A small business out of Portland with less than 500 employees has just been approved to build small nuclear reactors that could provide clean energy to millions of people. The problem is NuScale doesn't have any money. And until they get the funding they need to build SMRs, we're still many years away from seeing them become a profitable enterprise. Until that day comes, I wouldn't suggest you buy a single share of the stock. But you don't need to. I found a far better way for you to capitalize on the emergence of small nuclear reactors in America. You see, NuScale may be the first company to get the government stamp of approval for building SMRs, but another company is actually building one right now in real time. They're doing it inside this facility, the one I mentioned. 2,000 people are building a new type of small reactor called a microreactor. It's the first one of its kind in America. As I explained earlier, a microreactor is a type of SMR that is 1,000 times smaller than a conventional reactor, can restore power to any area hit by a natural disaster, can provide electricity to 10,000 homes for 10 years without ever stopping. It can power any mining operation or industrial power plant in the entire country. And it can be assembled in a factory in 72 hours. It fits inside a truck, a train, or a plane. This is the opportunity you have before you to invest in a nuclear technology that, according to DC correspondent Leo Braccino, is a sleeping giant in the energy debate, and that the folks over at The Spectator believe is the answer to our energy woes. But I'll say this right now. Investing in microreactors is not going to make you 1,000% gains overnight. It's just not how this is going to happen. So if that's what you're looking for, then this isn't for you. This is a long-term play on an emerging trend, and it will take years to unfold. But given that this is arguably the only way we're going to cut emissions by 50% within the next 7 years, and then down to zero by 2050, I believe an investment in nuclear energy is an investment in the inevitable, and one of the best opportunities I've ever seen in my career. However, what really excites me about this situation isn't so much the potential that scalable nuclear energy offers, but the amount of money at stake. You see, unlike any other opportunity out there, microreactors have a guaranteed customer in the U.S. military. Right now, you're looking at a 148-page study commissioned by the Army Deputy Chief of Staff. One of my contacts gave me a copy to read. In the study, the military says that nuclear microreactors are a disruptive innovation and that they could have a significant impact on the Army, our allies, the international community, the commercial power industry, and the nation. This isn't just an endorsement of a new technology. It's an admission by our own government that microreactors and nuclear power in general hold a special promise for the future of our country. After all, if there's any institution that needs a robust, uninterrupted power source, it's the military. That's why the DoD is projected to spend over $600 billion on nuclear initiatives between now and 2030. To date, there are approximately 1,200 U.S. military bases in the world. Many of them are in far-flung places like Antarctica, the Marshall Islands, Guam, Greenland, and the Alaskan Aleutian Islands. In these areas, you can't tap into a civilian energy grid to get electricity because there is no grid. So the military has to build large power fuel cell systems that run on natural gas and diesel. The big problem is that these are expensive systems and they have to be refueled constantly. Microreactors, on the other hand, can last 10 years without needing to be refueled. They can also be assembled in a factory and built at 1/50th the cost of a conventional reactor. That's what makes them so attractive to the military. They can provide power to anyone, anywhere, at any time. As nuclear engineer Mark Nickel put it, microreactors are the perfect fit to enable the military of the future. This isn't one of those hypothetical scenarios. The military is going all in right now on this technology. According to U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Kyle Hack, a medium-sized microreactor could be a worthwhile investment for up to 21 different DoD locations in the United States. The DoD has also set aside a $300 million contract to build a microreactor prototype. The U.S. Air Force has confirmed the site of its first microreactor in Alaska. The Biden administration has just handed $150 million over to the DOE's National Lab, where a microreactor is currently being built. Let's not forget, the government has set aside $6 billion to preserve the 93 nuclear reactors we have already and the 500,000 jobs associated with those reactors. You see, for the first time in history, there is bipartisan support for nuclear energy. The Democrats now realize that if our 93 nuclear reactors were to shut down, carbon emissions would go up enormously. That's why Congress is giving a 30% tax credit for nuclear plants that come online after 2025. That's why the richest man in America, Elon Musk, says, we should not only not shut down nuclear power plants, but we should reopen the ones that have already shut down. Even U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, who makes music videos about ending fossil fuels, has come to admit that the future of nuclear energy is here and should be protected. It took 5 decades, but the far left has finally changed its tune on nuclear energy. Meanwhile, Republican support has never been higher. And according to a recent poll, a record 77% of the general public, up from 49% in '83, now support the use of nuclear energy. What's exciting for you as an investor is that one company has figured out a way to leverage this bipartisan support, and in the process give themselves a virtual monopoly on the future of nuclear energy in America. How? By securing a pipeline of multi-billion-dollar nuclear contracts with the U.S. government, big pharma companies, and major utilities. In doing so, this company has strategically locked in their future revenues for the next 25 years. Even the former U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics economist says this company's future is tied to the future of nuclear power, both military and civilian. This guy doesn't work for the company, but he probably knows, just as I do, that this company is the sole manufacturer of nuclear reactors for U.S. military aircraft and submarines. It is one of only 2 providers licensed to store and process uranium for those reactors, has a near lock on supplying the Navy with critical nuclear inputs, and delivers almost all the mechanical equipment for the Navy's nuclear platforms. But most importantly, he knows this company is building microreactors for the U.S. military right now as you're watching this presentation. From an investing standpoint, I don't think it gets much better than this. And I don't say that lightly. If you know anything about me, you know that I don't peddle illusions or gamble on speculation and hearsay. I'm definitely an empiricist. I invest in big ideas that are changing the world, not trends that last 5 minutes and then disappear into thin air. For me, to get behind an opportunity, a lot of factors have to be in play. First, I need to see that a company has enough capital to build whatever technology it's developing. And because this company has multiple long-term contracts with the government, they're practically guaranteed to generate revenue. They have what I call flowing capital. In fact, there may be the only company I know of that has grown their revenues every year since 2015, even during the height of the pandemic. Secondly, I need to see that a company's technology has mass appeal. In this case, we're talking about thousands of nuclear microreactors that have the potential to power every small town, every military complex, every large corporation, every data center, every university campus, and every hospital in America. Lastly, I need to see that a company has a clear path to victory over its competitors, an unequivocal advantage. As a mentor once told me, I'm not interested in a fair game. And as the sole manufacturer of nuclear reactors for the United States military, this company has an unfair advantage on sales, as they can set prices and lock in profits. This also gives them very little exposure to swings in the economy. That's why in 2022, when the S&P fell 20%, this company's stock went up 47%. Does this share growth mean you're late to the party? Absolutely not. Once this company's fleet of microreactors goes online, I believe this company's valuation could potentially go up 5-fold, and I think that's conservative. The emergence of small nuclear reactors and microreactors in particular is the biggest development in energy since hydraulic fracking. It's something Morgan Stanley believes will bring about a nuclear revival in America. And William Becker, senior official with the Department of Energy, says could save civilization. After all, we're talking about a new way to provide reliable, clean energy to millions of people. And now that the first SMR has finally been approved for use by the U.S. government, these reactors are no longer hypothetical. They're here. They're a reality. And I believe they're going to make nuclear energy the dominant form of clean energy in America within the next 2 decades. To help you stake a claim in the nuclear revolution I believe we're about to see, I've put together a special briefing that covers every aspect of this opportunity. My report is called A Matter of National Security, and it reveals everything you need to know about the nuclear revolution that can save our country. Inside this briefing, you'll discover how nuclear energy works and why it is safer, cleaner, and more effective than any other form of energy we have on Earth. You'll get a detailed look at the history of SMRs and microreactors in particular. You'll see how one company has come to be the sole supplier of nuclear reactors for the U.S. military and what that means for you as an investor. I've said this before over the years, but I'll say it again now. There are a ton of bad investments out there. Penny stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate syndications, Forex options, NFTs, the metaverse, which was a non-verse. It's endless. But I don't jump on floating garbage. I invest in scalable technologies and resources that the world needs more of today. And right now, our world demands more energy than ever before. I believe only nuclear can answer that demand. I am not the only person who knows this. One MIT nuclear scientist calls microreactors transformative. Award-winning nuclear engineer Caleb Brooks says they could have a real future in decarbonizing the energy landscape in the U.S. An award-winning PhD engineer, Jean Elaine, feels that microreactors can revolutionize the way we think about energy. I think so too. And guys with credentials like these, they don't hype things up for no reason. They know that nuclear energy is the key to solving America's energy crisis. So do America's billionaires. Billionaire Jeff Bezos has just invested $130 million in nuclear technology. Billionaire Sam Altman has put $375 million into nuclear, the largest investment he's ever made. Billionaire Hubert Perodo has invested $208 million in small nuclear reactors. Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Warren Buffett, Mukesh Ambani, these billionaires are going in on what they believe will be the next big phase in the nuclear evolution. And so is the U.S. government. The DoD has invested $1.2 billion in nuclear technology, and they plan on investing another $5.5 billion in the next decade. As I showed you earlier, between 2015 and 2021, investments in nuclear technology by venture capitalists grew by more than 3,600%. Ray Rothrock, a venture capitalist and CEO, says he's never seen this kind of investment wave before, ever. And this is coming from a guy who's been in the game for decades. You see, with the arrival of microreactors, the playing field has been forever changed. New lines have been drawn. We are no longer at the mercy of resources that produce energy 10% to 25% of the time. We are now on the cusp of a new type of nuclear technology that, according to one very credible source, could provide energy to 1 billion people in the world who don't have access to electricity at all right now. As someone who follows my work, I don't want you to miss out on this opportunity. We may never see an opportunity like this again. That's why it's imperative that you get your hands on my new briefing, A Matter of National Security. I believe the content inside this document could lead to your financial redemption. But I'm only giving people access to this briefing who are part of my new venture. It's called The Big Secret on Wall Street. This is my first foray back into the world of investment research, and I'm very excited about it. Since I retired a few years ago, I've watched our industry go from being independent-minded to a virtual safe space, where every idea has been neutered in order to cater to the lowest common denominator. Instead of being on the fringe of exciting ideas, the newsletter industry has become the harbinger of bad ideas. This can't continue, and I don't want it to. If you can't already tell, I'm not a very politically correct person. I don't say things that people want to hear. I say things that people need to hear. I know from experience, from 25 years in this business, the only way to come out on top and survive in a world where the rich dominate is to break into their domain and access the kind of information that they use to their advantage every day. Like when I warned my readers in April 2008 that the financial markets were about to collapse, or when I published my controversial letters from the chairman of General Motors and predicted GM's bankruptcy years before it happened, or when I produced a documentary in 2010 that detailed how the government's bank bailouts, money printing, and soaring debt burden would lead to a crisis of America's civil society, a crisis that we have been witnessing for several years now. By the way, it brings me no joy to make those kinds of negative predictions. But as someone who writes about investing for a living, I have to be able to read the tea leaves so I can tell my readers where their money can grow and where to avoid putting it so that they don't suffer big losses. If I can't do that, I wouldn't be any good at what I do. In March 2006, I told my readers to put 25% of their portfolio, a huge portion of their money, into Budweiser. In fact, the headline of my newsletter that month was, "Will you buy enough?" My exact words were, sell whatever it takes to free up the capital you need, whatever it takes. Make sure you act on this month's recommendation. Don't wait. I knew that Budweiser would be one of the safest and best investments I could ever recommend. And I was right. Buffett was buying shares too. In only a couple years, we made 70% in profits when Brazilian brewer InBev bought Budweiser at the absolute height of the global financial crisis. You see, even though I'm famous for making successful investments in technology, the real point of my newsletters has always been to help people find safe investments. In December 2006, I encouraged one of my analysts, Dan Ferris, to build a safe investment strategy, and I challenged him to do it using only 4 stocks: Home Depot, Walmart, St. Joe's, and Microsoft. As Dan wrote, at the very least, I think you could easily put 80 to 90% of your money in these 4 stocks. Since then, those 4 stocks have produced total combined gains of around 2,000%. A year after that, I recommended 2 blue chip stocks, NVR and Hershey's. Those stocks are now up 1,000% and 500% respectively, and they're completely safe investments. This is one of the big reasons why I decided to come out of my retirement and start a new venture. I am so tired of watching people fall prey to bad ideas and get-rich-quick schemes that never pan out. I'm tired of watching the industry I helped create turn into a shadow of its former self. And above all else, I'm tired of watching everyone walk on eggshells because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. Our society has become incapable of having honest conversations and addressing problems head-on with real facts. I don't have that problem. I'm a direct person. I speak bluntly and to the point, and that's why I've had a target on my back for 25 years. The establishment has tried to sue me, to silence me, and they've slandered me at every possible turn. They don't want people like me to have a voice because I don't pander or embrace ideas I don't agree with. But they'll never stop me from doing what I do best, which is speaking my mind and helping others grow their wealth in a country whose leadership does not want you to be wealthy anymore. There's a longtime subscriber of mine who's become a friend. His name is Mark. He says, if you believe in the herd mentality, follow Wall Street. If you want to make money, I will let you in on a big secret. Follow Porter. Another one of my subscribers, who also happens to be Mark, says, anytime Porter talks about the big picture, I listen. I have benefited enormously from his insights and instinct in the past. I'm not going to miss the opportunity now. I built one of the largest and most successful financial research firms in U.S. history. I turned a $36,000 investment from a friend into a $3 billion research empire with nothing but a borrowed laptop computer. At this point in my life, I don't have to work, but I also don't want you to miss out on opportunities that others are too afraid to tell you about. Scalable nuclear energy and the rise of microreactors is exactly the kind of story that I love. And almost no one else knows anything about it yet, especially in the research industry, which has been swallowed up by the tide of political correctness. Everyone's afraid to talk about nuclear. Just look at ESG. It's nothing but a blatant attempt to politicize corporate America and push policies on companies that nobody wants or cares about. It's a shame that our industry focuses more on this kind of nonsense than it does on finding the best investment opportunities. But that's what's happened. And that's why I decided to come out of retirement. I want to bring back high-quality investment research. I want to remind my peers that we're not here to talk about what's popular or trending on social media. We're not here to pump raw sewage into people's portfolios. We're here to break big stories, to bring you big ideas that the rich and the powerful covet for themselves. These are the kinds of ideas that have the potential to make you generational wealth over the long term. Will all of our ideas be correct? Of course not. Investing always carries risk. But when I put my name on something, you know it's something that I actually firmly believe in, and that it's an idea I'm willing to back for the next decade or longer, because it's going to make you a lot of money. If that's what you're looking for, I invite you to become a member of The Big Secret on Wall Street. As I said before, this is my new flagship financial advisory service. It's personally written by me and two of the best analysts I've ever worked with. As a new subscriber, you'll get instant access to my nuclear power briefing, a matter of national security. And just so you know, I'm never going to hand over the reins of this new company to anyone else. My company is called Porter & Company for a reason. This is my comeback expedition, no one else's. And not to toot my own horn, but when it comes to investing and making determinations about where we're going as a society, I'm rarely ever wrong. Does that mean I'm right about everything? No, of course not. There are plenty of things I'm not any good at. I was a terrible employee. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, including almost dropping out of college. But for over 25 years, I've spent almost all my time serving investors with near reckless determination. And I think it's fair to say that when it comes to my biggest and most important claims, I've never been wrong. For example, I don't believe there's any other financial analyst in the world who foresaw the rise of the internet before it happened, who correctly predicted the demise of General Electric a decade before it happened, who predicted the bankruptcy of General Motors, who actively predicted the collapse of the entire mortgage banking industry, including the failure of both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, despite government officials claiming those institutions were well capitalized. You remember that? My background as an energy investor is likewise unimpeachable. I wrote for years that peak oil was a myth. I predicted the rise of shale oil and gas in America. And in early 2009, I predicted that America would once again become the world's largest producer of hydrocarbons. It has. Investors who followed me into the shale fields in the early days have made fortunes. And I've turned my readers onto dozens of companies long before they became household names. PayPal, Shopify, Illumina, Apple, Regeneron. I don't believe anyone else puts as much time, money, and energy into their research as I do. I'll explain it simply. I love investing. I love helping investors make a lot of money. And because this is my livelihood, I'll be doing all the heavy lifting for this new venture, which means my team and I will be releasing one new report every other Friday afternoon. It will include a new opportunity or trend we see coming down the pike. The amount of intel crammed into these briefings is unparalleled to anything else out there. And because this is my reputation on the line, I oversee all the research personally. This way, I know that the data we're basing our recommendations on is 100% correct. We're not sourcing our research from some kid's TikTok account. I keep a close eye on everything that we do for you. How? Well, my new headquarters is in a barn. in my own backyard. And my employees, they're my best friends, people I've known for decades and I fully trust. We're a small operation and I intend to keep it that way. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no drawn out processes, no political posturing. Just the smartest people I know working together under one roof, looking for the best investment opportunities in the world and sharing those ideas with like-minded people like yourself. This is how I intend on building a long-term, profitable relationship with you and how I intend on earning your trust. This way, whenever you hear about an opportunity from me, you know that it's been vetted and that it checks all the boxes. You don't have to question it or worry about that we've missed something or left a stone unturned. I also know that the only way I'm going to earn your trust is by making this as much about you as it is about me. Here's what I mean. One of the things that's been sorely missing from our industry since I retired is camaraderie, the sense of belonging to something that has actual meaning and purpose in your life. It's not just reading emails and getting texts and watching boring webinars. Understand, I got into this business not because I wanted to make a name for myself, but because I wanted to build relationships with people who could enlighten me to opportunities I can't find on my own. The only way you can extract ideas from these guys is by meeting them in person. That's why, as part of this new initiative, I'm going to be hosting private conferences at my farm in Baltimore County, Maryland. This is the same building that I spent a small fortune converting into a personal workspace. At these private conferences, I'll be bringing in the most talented investors, traders, money managers, economists, and CEOs in America. Over the course of multiple days, we're going to break bread, exchange ideas, and have an open dialogue with one another. I'm going to record all of these events so that you can be a part of them, even if you don't want to hop on a plane and trek across the country. This way you can watch each presentation from the comfort of your own home, at your own convenience and at your own time. But it doesn't end there. In addition to my bi-weekly investment briefings and conferences, I'm giving you access to the entire backlog of my reports at the Big Secret on Wall Street. Inside every briefing is an actionable, long-term investment opportunity that you can take advantage of today. Right now, there are 17 buys in the portfolio. Our battleship stocks, which are designed to give you immunity against the chaotic markets, are up 12% on average since about a year ago. Only one of our recommendations has been in the red. All the other ones are up, even though the market itself has gained no steam at all in the last 9 months. As you know, we believe in the kinds of investments that are destined to have a huge impact in the world, not just minor trends that come and go like the wind. And as a new member, you'll receive timely updates and alerts on all of our recommendations. I promise you'll never miss an opportunity. Hopefully, by this time next year, you'll have the most impressive portfolio of your entire life. Membership to the Big Secret on Wall Street costs $1,425 per year. That might seem expensive to some people, but since launching my new company 9 months ago, we've added over 6,000 new subscribers. That's because most experienced investors know that our work is worth a whole lot more than it costs. And while we would certainly appreciate your business too, we're not a publishing company like many of our competitors. That is, we don't pretend to charge only a small fee, like $100, so that we can then spend the next 12 months trying to sell you additional products. We know that game well. Hell, I helped invent it. And that is one way of doing business. And if that's what you prefer, there are many firms to meet your needs. Instead, we're seeking to serve real investors who have real research needs and who don't want to be bombarded with constant additional marketing. So we charge a real price up front for our research, $14.25. And I'm sure we will continue to raise our prices going forward. We charge a lot in comparison to other publishers because, first of all, we won't sell your name or address to anyone. Second, we only hire the very best analysts and customer service people, and they're expensive. Our model also works. For more than 20 years, I've served investors faithfully and well with hundreds of outstanding investment ideas, and I've picked up right where I left off with my new team at Porter & Company. My point is, if you want cheap investment research, you can find it in lots of places. If you want world-class investment research, I invite you to join us. Quality is expensive, but I believe it's worth it, especially considering it can more than pay for itself in better returns. And it gets even better. If you agree to join the Big Secret on Wall Street today, I'm going to give you a special new member discount. Instead of $14.25, you only need to pay $1,000. That's more than a $400 discount, but only if you join today. So claim your membership now. Just click the button below this video. You'll be taken to a safe encrypted webpage where you can enter your details and secure your spot as a new member. Plus, on that page, you're going to find details on another bonus report that's waiting for all new subscribers. It's called Cold War 2.0. This report reveals a unique energy investment opportunity that will allow you to capitalize on the coming super cycle and U.S. natural gas. Just like with today's opportunity in nuclear energy, I believe this investment has the potential to net you uncharted gains in the coming years. You probably don't know this, but prior to Russia invading Ukraine, the European Union relied on Russia for 45% of its natural gas. After the war started, however, the EU announced plans to stop using all Russian gas by 2030. This means Europe and the 750 million people who live there will need to source their energy from somewhere else. This is where our big opportunity comes into play. The U.S. is the leading supplier of liquid natural gas to Europe. In 2022, our shipments to the continent surged by more than 137% compared to the year before. But over the next several years, as we build new LNG export facilities, our exports will grow by another 50%. And that gas will be going straight to Europe, as well as Japan, China, and India. To meet the massive new demand for U.S. gas, our rate of production growth will need to more than double. That means gas prices will skyrocket, and the companies who own land in America's energy-producing LNG basins will be the biggest beneficiaries. Through one of my contacts, I've learned that one company owns 20 million acres of land that exploration companies use to drill wells on. This entitles them to receive a percentage of the oil and gas that's produced on those wells, without having to put any of its own money up to drill. Here's a map showing you where America's LNG export terminals are located. As you can see, all but one of them is either in Texas or Louisiana. And here's a map showing you where this company's land holdings are. Notice most of the land in this company is concentrated in the same two states where all the big natural gas powerhouses are. That's why this company has almost $500 million in operating income versus only $60 million in debt. And it's why its CEO just purchased over 3 million shares of the company on the open market. As America is increasingly an LNG export powerhouse, the companies that own low-cost gas reserves, like this one, will likely reap huge benefits. When you join the Big Secret on Wall Street, you'll learn all about this company and why it could be the perfect way to play the coming natural gas supercycle. Everything is inside the Cold War 2.0 bonus briefing that's included with your membership. All you've got to do is click the button below this video to learn how to begin your membership. And look, I don't expect you just to take my word for everything we've covered today, which is why I want to let you test drive my research before you make your final decision. Click the button below now, secure your spot, and take a full 30 days to check out my work with no obligation. If at any point you decide the Big Secret on Wall Street isn't for you, just drop my team an email and we'll issue you a refund, minus a small 10% cancellation fee. To take advantage of this special offer, just click the button below this video. Or if you prefer, you can call my office and speak with my team. These are people that I personally handpicked to represent my new company. I've worked with most of these people for decades. Others were chosen for their outstanding work ethic. All the details of your membership are listed on the next page, so go ahead, click the link below right now while the offer is still available. Remember, when you become a new member today, you'll lock in this discount plus get the bonus report. But this offer expires soon, so please don't miss it. Click the button below right now to secure your spot and join me as we hunt down the most important and overlooked opportunities in the markets. I look forward to meeting you in person one day soon.